What's up, YouTube? Southern Comic Geek coming to you with not a mystery unboxing, not a reveal of any kind. It is another interview, and this time I'm talking with another Valiant collector. Now, before we get to talking about our Valiant goodness, that's right, I said Valiant and goodness in the same sentence. Collecting is all collecting your way, right? So before we get to talking about that Valiant goodness, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you haven't already, hit the bell notification so that when videos like this drop ever so randomly, you will be one of the first people to know and can make the conscious decision as to whether or not to watch it now or watch it later. But as long as you watch it, we appreciate you. And we've got Discovery Bay jumping in here. He must have rung that bell. So thank you, Discovery Bay. And with us tonight is no stranger among the YouTube community. As a matter of fact, he has been A-OKing his brains out, I think. I think he cleaned out his whole garage or something. And that is Dayymares. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. How are you this fine evening?
Not too bad.
Yeah, we've got a couple people jumping in, and so appreciate anybody that joins us tonight. And so we're talking Valiant Comics. And so I don't remember exactly how it was that I don't know if I seen you on maybe a YouTube show somewhere, or I seen maybe a post on IG, and I said, this guy's got good taste in comics. so, that's how I figured out that you liked Valiant. And so when I got to talking about doing a show or whatever, you said, hey, I'm down for it. And so here we are. So why don't you, for people that might not be familiar with you, go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm normally on Instagram. I've got a few YouTube videos, but not that many. Mainly just on Instagram. Collected in the 90s like most people, and then sort of stopped around a little bit before 2000 whenever I got married, and then just sort of quit collecting until a few years ago whenever a friend got me back into it.
Okay. So did you get rid of your collection and then start back over, or did you just blow the dust off of it and start from where you left off?
I got rid of all of it less than a short box.
Yeah. So how old are you?
I am 43.
Okay. So I'm 42. So we're about the same age. And, like you, about 99, 2000, I got rid of all my stuff. And just last year is when I got back into comic collecting and picked up where I left off. And that's what we kind of gravitate back towards, right? That thing that kicks that nostalgia vibe with us. And so for myself, a lot of it was Valiant Comics. And I found that as I got into the YouTube and the Instagram world, there was not as much appreciation for what I liked on some of my stuff as others, but that's okay because it's collect your way. So what is your earliest memory for Valiant Comics? Do you remember the first Valiant comic that you picked up?
Vaguely. I remember the first, I bought several off the shelf, but my first major, I guess you'd say major purchase as a young teenager was a Rise Zero, which was, about $40-50 at the time or so. Way back in the early mid 90s, like 94 or so. It was at the peak of its hotness, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the few that made it, through the call, and I kept.
So talking about Rise, you said Rise Zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So talking about Rise Zero, I'm sure you know the fun fact about that cover. If you want to share with the folks listening, that fun factoid that they might not be familiar with.
Yeah, it was who did the Mike Zeck, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was a Mike Zeck Punisher ripoff, basically. You got to basically word it that way. That's what it was. You can basically put the silhouette of the two together, and it's a perfect match.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They totally ripped off Mike Zeck on that, and but that's cool. And so the interesting thing about Valiant for me was the fact that their characters actually died and stayed dead. Um,
Yes.
Foreign concept in today's world, uh, but it was something that DC actually used to do with Barry Allen and Alan Scott Green Lantern. Somebody else took the mantle up, and you
Mhm.
mentioned Rye, and that's
Yeah.
basically what happened with Rye. He
Hmm.
fought Mother God, and that was the first issue that I picked up of Valiant Comics was the issue he died in. That's let's see, 9 starts Future Force, so 8 is the last issue, so 7, 7 is the issue that he dies in, um, which was part of the whole Unity storyline, and so it really, but in the South, at least where I was at, there really wasn't a lot of availability for Valiant comics.
No.
Um, I remember seeing some of the early Zelda and Game Boy stuff that came out, but as far as when it came to Rye and all the stuff that came later, I was fortunate enough in my town that a comic shop opened up, and they were able to get that stuff at that point. But that stuff was pretty expensive back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, so
You know, a lot of this stuff I was buying was off the shelf, so it was cover price. But that's when they started getting, overproduced, for lack of a better term. Um, and actually, what got me into comics in general is I used to collect, and I've still got most of them, or some of them, baseball cards and
mhm.
other sports trading cards. And one of the local shops was, I'd say, 80% comics and about 20% cards.
Mhm.
And that's what started getting me into comics. And I just sort of made the switch.
That's funny because the shop that was here in Brookhaven, it was Wallace baseball cards and video games. And so originally they were a baseball card shop, and that's how I started going there. And when they expanded across the street and started renting out video games, they decided to start selling comic books. And because I was an avid reader, it just was the natural progression of things for me was to be able to put the art with it and still have the collectability factor that I liked with
Yeah.
baseball cards. That's why when they had the X-Men cards and the Valiant cards, which I know a
Mhm.
guy who sent me these Valiant cards, which I do appreciate. When
I
I
bought a
mean these,
case of them, an actual case.
and so when they had these, I mean, it was just symbiotic,
Mhm.
and so it really worked well uh, for that. But we had Burke jump in here to say hello, and he says, "Nice shirt." Um, and then we've still got. Looks like we got 4 people up in here. We got Superior Hero Reviews. What is going on? So, so let me ask you this. This is a deep, dark secret, but if you say it, nobody's going to know. Just everybody that watches YouTube, this YouTube video. But how many Turok ones or Bloodshot ones do you own?
One of each.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
He paused on that one. Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. One of each.
Oh, just one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you're better than
I,
me.
unless I'm speculating on something, for the most part, I just keep one book.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Bloodshot, if I see one out in the wild for $1, I'm just like, I got to rescue this, And so it's Barry Windsor Smith goodness.
That's
And
that's
so I got to pull it out, and so I don't pay much for the ones I got. I got 15, by the way, and but yeah, so that's what I do. But and people always harken back, not so much Bloodshot, but especially with Turok, and say, "Oh my goodness, here's Turok." And of course, they listen to Comic Tom and blah blah blah.
yeah.
But the thing with it is all comics in the 90s were over published.
It
It
had,
wasn't the Turok one.
I mean, it had a tenth of the print run of X-Men 1 or less. I mean, and it's not even in the top 20, most published comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a bunch of them out there because there's, not much interest in them, and there was a lot of them made back then, but
Right.
everything was there was a lot of back then. Because
Yeah,
people were buying stuff, by the box,
Well, in the 90s, we were told that if we bought those comics that we would have our college paid for, right?
Yeah.
And so people were in line to buy the Youngblood ones and the Spawn ones and
Mhm.
everything else that came out at the same time. And, the speculator market fell apart. I I really blame it on Wizard, even though I love Wizard comics and, have several of them that are related to characters that I like. But, that Wizard top 10, I think it was, I
Yeah.
mean, every Valiant, every Image was on that comic list. And if it was on that Wizard list, this is pre-internet and pre-Instagram and all this other kind of stuff that specs it up now.
It
But
was hot for at
Wizard
least
was
a month.
driving that stuff up.
Yeah, it was hot for at least a month.
Until the next magazine came out, and you go, "Oh man, it went down."
Yeah. Oh, it went up! Yay!
Yeah. And so, as a nerd kid, I was sitting there looking at it, going, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to retire, super wealthy because I got this comic."
So, I had that original Rise Zero. I still got it, and I also had a gold number 9 Ryan the Future Force.
Mm-hmm.
I got both of those at a card comic book show that I was at. So a friend of mine had a Silver Surfer number 1. He wanted some Image books that I had, like Gen 13 1/2
Mm-hmm.
and some other stuff that's not worth much today.
Yeah.
There was a dealer that had those 2 books, and I wanted them. So we made a 3-way trade. Worst one, worst 3-way trade I've ever been involved in. Yeah,
Wow.
but so that's what I've got in mine is actually not cash, but I could have in place of those 2 comic books, I could have had a Silver Surfer number 1.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Then you look at it and you go,
But at the time they were worth around the same.
Well, and as a teenager,
Yeah.
who would you rather look at?
Yeah.
Gen 13 and J. Scott Campbell,
Yeah.
or Silver Surfer. So
yeah. So that's what the one my friend wanted, and then I wanted the Valiant books that were impossible to find.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, those golds and Rise Zero, it was just non-existent.
So you have a copy of the matte version as well as the glossy version, or one or the other?
Yep. I've got that's one I do have multiple. Well, I've got it in a raw. That's my original one. Then a raw that somebody gave me, and then a 9.8 of the glossy, 9.8 of the matte.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't gotten any of mine graded yet. And I tell you, I just have, because looking at other comics, I have, kind of a confidence, okay, that this is this grade, or this is that grade, or this is this one, like a first print or second print. But the Rise Zero, it's very hard to me to tell the difference between the glossy and the matte.
Yep. The easiest way I've discovered is not actually how glossy or matte it is, but how much of the interior page it shows.
Okay.
If you can see a stripe down the side on the right, where the pages are.
Okay.
It will be a glossy.
All right.
because the front cover is a little bit more narrow.
Uh-huh.
Let me
Matter of fact,
I'll grab mine real quick.
Yeah, before I came on the show here tonight, I bought a Rise Zero on a YouTube auction. Like I needed another one or something. All right,
so notice how there's so that's a glossy.
This is a glossy?
Yeah.
Okay.
See how you can see that little black and stuff over there on the side?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that. All right, so this would be a matte then.
Yep.
Oh, here's another glossy.
Yep.
Huh. Well, now I have confidence. I'm going to send this to CGC now. Once I get it signed. I want to get Jim Shooter, preferably, to sign this, or maybe Bob Layton. But yeah, huh? Oh, okay. So where'd you learn that little trick from?
The internet.
Man, I
honestly don't remember
and they're like, okay, depends on the way you look at it in the light, and I'm like, I just could never get it.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, you can tell it that way, and that's probably honestly the best way to tell. But somebody pointed that out to me, and every time I see them now, that's what they fall into. Is if you can see that extra there, if the cover is that short, then it's a glossy.
Huh.
Which is pretty quick, easy way to tell.
Yeah, sure. So who would you consider to be your favorite Valiant character?
You like the guy last time. That's kind of hard question to answer. Because one of the things I absolutely loved about the Valiant universe, and it still kind of applies today, is how much it's connected, and how much stuff from one comic book will affect the other. Not, in most comic book worlds, what happens in Gotham doesn't have any effect on what happens, somewhere else. Well, in Valiant, it did. So I'd probably have to go with Rye, just in general, all of them. If I was to I sort of like the whole theory behind him and, protecting his homeland. But then, I mean, it's pretty much all of them.
Yeah, it is hard because, I like Rye, but the thing with Rye is, there we go with the echo again. Why are we hitting the echo again? Testing 1 2. Let's see. Testing 1 2. Yeah. Okay. But I like Rye, but he's not very much used, right? So I mean, he's got the current run that he's on with Dan Abnett, which I'm liking. But as far as he's not like Bloodshot, Bloodshot's had several miniseries, several goes and stops, and Bloodshot is probably Valiant's title character right now. Especially in light of the movie. But Eternal Warrior, I dig the Eternal Warrior concept because I was a big Highlander fan, and so if you think back to the Highlander days, especially like the TV series, how they would do it, like they would do a flashback of the old time, and then they would come back into the new, and how it connected. Eternal Warrior done the same thing, and so it was really cool how they connected it. Now, talking about the Eternal Warrior Have you ever, or did you tell me that you got one of those Eternal Warrior axes or no?
No, no, I don't. I would love to have one, but I don't have one.
I contacted Valiant and they gave me several shops names of that they had sent those out to, and actually said they try to call them to verify that they had them. Unfortunately, timing was horrible because this was these were mostly in New York, and this was about the time of the shutdown. And
Gotcha.
so hopefully, if things kind of start to turn a little bit more normal, maybe I can actually get a hold of them, and they might actually still have it back there with dust, and I can take it off their hands for a small fee. What is going on, Sith Lord Lee? What's up? What's up? And appreciate the others of you who are hanging out with us tonight as we kind of just talk Valiant comics. So, the other thing with Valiant, you mentioned earlier, the connected universe. It is the third largest comic connected universe. Obviously Marvel and DC being the top one. But because it's not as far strong as what Marvel and DC are, or have the depth of history, they don't go back to 1939. They are a little more interconnected, to your earlier point. Whereas, like with Batman, you can read Batman and Detective might not have the same story in it. I mean, Batman's having two adventures at two different times. And then the other interesting thing with Valiant Comics to me is the fact that, okay, you had Valiant and then it went to Acclaim. Now, if you want to talk about wonky stories, Acclaim has them.
Yeah.
But Acclaim was ahead of its time, because what AT&T and all these big media companies are doing today, that's what Acclaim was trying to do then.
Mm-hmm.
They were using those comic properties to bring you into the video games, and then vice versa. They were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and the bubble burst. But,
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to the reboot. Anytime, let's take New 52, for example. So you got New 52, and then you got Rebirth, if you're talking about DC wise. There's people that have panned those reboots, meaning that they said this is totally off character. For example, I think it was the New 52 basically did away with Wally West. They made Batman darker, as if that was a possibility. The New 52 made Superman and Wonder Woman a thing, and then of course they kind of reversed all that going into Rebirth. But so a lot of diehards were not okay with the New 52 as opposed to the Rebirth. I liked them both, but with Valiant, when they rebooted it, if nothing else, they made the characters better.
Yes.
And
with that 2012 reboot with Dinesh leading the charge, and among hundreds of others,
right.
It was
when they rebooted those things, it was Eternal Warrior. He has the battle axe, which I thought was a great addition to him. The Bloodshot. He dropped the sword, which I wasn't too particularly fond of. But when you think about Jeff Lemire, Miko Suan covers, then you go to EXO. You're talking about Robert Venditti writing it. I mean, Dinesh brought killer talent in there.
Mm-hmm.
And was able to put it together, and it was great. Is that basically your thoughts? Do you think the same thing, or did you like the reboot, how they changed the characters a little bit? They really just tweaked them, but
yeah, I really did. I'm actually to the point of I'm interested to see what happens with Bad Idea.
I don't know. Did you see Reggie? From Reggie Collects interviewed Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios. Did you happen to see that?
No, I hadn't saw that one.
So if you get a chance to watch that, you will see. And Ross is making the circuit. He'll go and he's interviewed at several different places, and so it's the same thing. The point I'm trying to drive home is that if you listen to Ross Ritchie, he's like Dinesh. He's very passionate about comics. Okay.
That makes a huge difference.
and it makes a huge difference. And so you look at what Boom Studios is doing right now. Something's killing the children. Once and Future. I mean, they're killing it right now with their stuff. Why? Because the leader is the one that's saying, "Hey, this is great." And if we can sell comics, we can sell media. We can sell the TV. I think that some comic companies, AT&T would be a perfect example of this, since they recently acquired DC, and even the company that owns Valiant Comics now, they're really more worried about the movies than the comics. The comics are the only billboards that you can make people pay for.
Yep.
You drive up and down the interstate and you pay a lot of money for those billboards for people to look at. Whereas now you have comic books in the form of $3.99, or some of them are getting more expensive for floppies, and people pay you to take them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're advertising your product. And so when it comes out on the big screen, they go, boom, I gotta go see that. I think Marvel is getting a better hang of that, but they've got such a treasure trove of stories that they could just stop it today and then still have it for years on end. But, companies like Valiant would do well to look at that model and say, man, we are missing the boat here.
Well, and they're a small enough company that a lot of the recent offerings have kind of disappointed me. Just to be honest, I still love them as a company. I'm still, buy a lot of the new stuff, but it's not as good as it was a couple years ago. And you can look at, people leaving, and not just necessarily, high management and stuff, but writers and artists and stuff like that. And I mean, you don't have to have a superstar on every book. Don't get me wrong there, but a bigger name can bring a lot of people in to see something for the first time.
Well, or to kickstart something back that needs some life support, right?
Yeah, that's what I was meaning. That, like I was saying, you don't need it for every issue all the time, but you get somebody to do a 4 or 6 issue run on something.
Yeah, and I think that Valiant of today can look back at Dinesh, the 2012 reboot, and all the talent we just mentioned, but then also even going back to Jim Shooter. I mean, Barry Windsor Smith, Don Perlin, Bob Layton, all these, Joe Quesada. I think either his first or early work is in Valiant Comics. You just had so much talent over there, and that's what drove that. It's the art that draws people to the book. It's the writing that keeps them.
Yes.
So
why I basically kept a lot more of my Valiant books than I did my Image whenever I pruned my collection. Because the Image might have drawn me in with the flashy covers and all that type of stuff, but the substance wasn't as much there as it was with the Valiant.
So I was listening to, and I mentioned this on the former one I did talking about Valiant Comics, but I was listening to Rob Liefeld's Robservations, and he made the observation that Image Comics was more about the drawing and the art, whereas Valiant Comics was about the story. Now, I'm not putting down their art. I'm a huge Barry Windsor Smith fan. I mean, I even keep his Rune stuff. I mean, from Malibu Universe.
That's the only Barry Windsor Smith autograph I have is on a Rune comic book.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Have you seen this one?
Nice. Yeah.
So I just happened to pop into Elvine's Comics, Christian, who does Elvine's Comics on Instagram. He's a huge Valiant fan. And most of the time when you show up on his auctions, he's going to have a Valiant shirt of some kind on. And he had this Joker up there raw. And he said, this is signed by Barry Windsor Smith and Bob Layton. And I said, give it to me. So I had it pressed and sent to CBCS, and they authenticated the signatures. And that's the only Barry Windsor Smith signature I've got right there. I don't see them around a lot,
No, no. Even on eBay and stuff, there's just not a lot,
Mm-hmm. And I hear he's kind of an odd bird, so he's
I don't
not
think
like
he's
making a
signed
ton.
too much in the past decade or so.
Well, we got a couple of people that showed up. They might still be here. We got TK's Batcave. What's going on, TK? See, hey, look, TK. We're talking Valiant, but I got a little Batman on. And then we've got Legion of Comics. We were talking about Boom. He said their Power Rangers crushing it there. Mr. Gorell, hello there. And as much of an Obi-Wan voice as I can muster up. Hello there yourself. And so, yeah, well, hey, if you got some stuff that you want to show off, let's show off some books or some art.
I'll go through these pretty quick. They're just one thing I have that's Valiant was doing at one time what I thought was kind of a neat idea. And they had their Valiant Verified Signature Series. And they made various numbers of the various issues, but I have all of them that they made. I meant, one copy of all of them they made, at least. These were some of the first ones. They don't actually have the embossment. They were given out by Diamond as retailers specials. And they actually had two different letters, so that's why I actually kept two copies of that. And there was a Shadow Man one. This one's probably the easiest one to see the embossment on, but there's a label. They basically a notary stamp, and then they came with a certificate showing how many they had. So here is one I have. I forgot I do have more than just the one Turok. I've got these two that are also out of that. Out of the VVSS, and then a normal Turok, and then the gold Turok. Some more of the some more. I'll get through them here in just a second.
So that secret weapons, it came in the Manila folder originally, right?
Yeah, that was one of them that came in the Manila folder. And it was, by the time they got to these, which was, only a few issues in, they were down to just 1,600 they were putting out. And one of the Bloodshots.
So do you have one of the error variants with Bloodshot, the Platinum or whatever they call it?
No, that is one that pretty much the only one I'm missing from the early stuff, besides some of the Nintendo stuff and some of the advertising stuff. There's one, they made 3 or 4 of the advertising, like the Cheezosaurus Rex. There was 2 of those. There was Adventures of O, which was
the Spaghetti-O thing.
Spaghetti-Os. Now I've got one of the Cheezosaurus Rex and the Spaghetti-O one, and then they also had one for KFC.
Okay, I didn't know about the KFC one.
I don't have the KFC one, and one of the Cheezosaurus Rexes was he's in an airship, and it's really rare too.
Yeah, I've got the other one. I just ordered it. It's probably be here tomorrow. But the Cheezosaurus Rex.
Yep, I've got it. I picked it up relatively cheap, and it's a 9.4 actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's what I thought whenever I got it. So by this time, they're down to under 800. So they were dropping pretty quick. Another one. A couple of Armorines. Then this one is really hard to find.
The Geomancer chromium cover.
Yep. And then this one is absolutely the hardest one to find. It says under 100. I mean, under 1,000. But the closer guess that most people put on it is about 500 or less. you just never see them come up. I spent over a year looking for it and ended up having to buy the whole set out of Canada. And then, speaking of the 2012, they did reissue one of the Secret Weapons #1, and basically did the same thing. It even comes with the cert. But that is those. Here's one thing that well, let me run through these real quick. So you probably remember. Do you remember the Valiant Voices?
Yep.
The little 25-cent, newspaper thing. Yeah. I have all 19. 19 was, and a couple of the other ones, but mainly 19 was a pain to find.
That's the one with Shadow Man on it, right?
Yeah. The Shadow Man 18.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to find it, and I got it for a halfway decent price, but then still more expensive than you'd think for a 2-page newspaper. Then let me skip some of this, but there's some a fan forum for Valiant started putting out some stuff where they were getting sort of redoing the what the Valiant VVSSs did, where they were, limited like 50 or so, but they got with the artists and stuff to make those, and then they were donating most of the money to like cystic fibrosis and other worthy causes. But they were taking some of the more key issues that didn't get a stuff, and like Joe St. Pierre, and a lot of them would come with
nice
art on the back, Sean Chin sketch, to kind of make them a little bit more interesting. There was another rye that came with another Sean Chin sketch.
That one special, is that still the flip book with the Magnus?
Yeah. Yep.
No.
Yep. What they did is they just bought overstock.
Oh, okay.
And picked up like 50 copies of it. And I guess I forgot about this one too. So there was that one that they did. Then they did a gold one of this. It was, another one that was 60 and came with print. Then they did this one, and they came with little remarks.
First Bloodshot appearance there.
Yeah. And then this was part of that, and they sort of came. Those two, that one and this one, kind of came as a set, and then they had a print on the back, tied them together. And then just some other stuff they had that was like a print and a bookmark. But to me, and then I'll do this real quick. They had like a yearbook that had just, it sort of did a homage to the X-Men. I forgot what issue that is.
41.
Yeah.
141. Yeah. So, did you post that on your IG right there?
Probably, but inside of it, they did a bunch of basically zombie type stuff that artists had did for this book.
Oh wow!
Which is, I thought, kind of
doing zombies before zombies were cool, man.
Yeah. And then got those, and then these are really hard to find too. They're like a preview book.
Yeah, the preview books, yeah.
But they're, instead of the white ones, they're red, and they're, magazine sized.
So what's the difference between the white ones and the red ones?
Well, the red ones are #1 bigger and in physical size, but they're not. There's not a whole lot to them. Like it's this red cover with a staple at the top, and then just like some art out of the upcoming issues and stuff. There wasn't much to them, but they're, nobody really kept this stuff.
Right.
This
I found a Shadow Man number 6 retailer preview in a dollar bin in Springfield when I was up there a couple weeks ago. And, it's stuff like that just, it's the same place I found that Marines number 2 or 3. It's stuff like that, to me, I get as much of a thrill of as, picking up a huge Key or Grail book, And
this one is one I found really interesting.
Oh, it's the non-black cover?
Yeah. So the what it is that same forum got with Don Perlin and said, what would you have put on the cover? And so he made this sketch in 2008, or not sketch, but actual full-blown. And then they used that as the cover. And then on the insides are his pencils.
Sweet.
Of the issue. So, it's just his pre-roughed pencils with non-inked.
So for people that don't know, that's what the cover looks like, the mass-produced cover. So it's the black issue.
Yeah. And then, that's about half the book is the rough pencils and stuff that Perlin did.
So how many of those are out there like that?
Oh, this is the first one I've ever saw, but I've saw other people talking about it. Judging by the other stuff that forum came out with, I'd say around 50.
So you mentioned forum. Are you on the Valiant forum?
Which one?
I think it's called Valiant. Let me find it here. Valiant
fans.
Yeah, Valiant fans.
That's where these originally came from.
Okay.
Back in the day, whenever the forums were bigger, and Valiant was, before the 2012 relaunch and stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
Whenever it was sort of a grayer area that they could, do stuff like this. The other stuff, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. But then in the last half of the book is an interview with Jim Shooter. Cool. He talks about, just the process of coming up with projects at Valiant and stuff like that. So it's just kind of a neat. Oh, and then interview with Don Perlin.
Wow.
So just kind of an interesting history thing on it. So that's it of that main stuff like that I pulled out of the, really oddball stuff.
Yeah. So Mr. Garrell's making an observation. Say, when I ask you, do you have that? You're like, oh yeah, I got that. So I got that.
Well, of the original, superhero run, so not including the Nintendo stuff. Mm-hmm. So the VH1 run, I have everything.
Okay. All the zeros, all the gold issues, everything.
Yep.
So do you plan to, or just because like the value, I've heard people pan, the Nintendo stuff. It was kind of cheesy and, it was for kids. I mean, it was doing what it was supposed to do. I mean, that's who it was writing it to. Or the WW, the wrestling stuff.
Yes. I don't have any of that either.
So But there's a Game Boy. I think it's Game Boy #1 that Steve Ditko did the pencils for.
I plan on getting into those. It was just, sort of a labor to get what I've got. So
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm sort of taking a break from searching for a while because even into the claim stuff, I have over 95% or so of the claim stuff.
Okay.
Even, stuff like the Armorines 4 and Shadow Man 6, stuff like that. I've got it. So
do you have the glow in the dark version of Clayton Crane's first book?
No, I do not. That's one I do not have.
Now, there's a glow in the dark and a non-glow in the dark. I found the non-glow in the dark in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was at a comic shop there and found it. And unfortunately, I did not have it when I saw Clayton Crane a couple of months ago. But I got him to sign Shadow Man. One of the Shadow Man's got the KKK on it. And I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, he signed his name with the K's back then, which was, he's drawing the KKK. His initials are KK. Anyway. That was kind of a neat stuff. And I think that a lot of people, just because on the surface, the speculation market, they're not interested in Valiant. And I think that a lot of people just automatically think Turok 1, I've got several copies of it and the gold copy. So I'm not dissing on my man Turok, but I think that they blanket statement everything with Valiant. But when you think about Joe Quesada's early work, when you think about Vendetti's work on Exo, when you think about Don Perlin, who's also known for drawing Moon Knight, when you think about Jim Shooter, who, helped Marvel get back on steady feet, when Barry Windsor Smith, when you think about whether it's from the VH1, as you refer to it, or now, or not so much now, but the relaunch.
Yeah.
Look, man, there's so much talent there. And so if you like reading, I'm sorry.
And good books.
Oh yeah.
Just good reading,
If you like reading your comics, which strangely enough, when I got back into it, people were like, I don't read it. I'm like, what? You don't read it? But if you read your comics, there are definitely some good stories to be found in Valiant. And so it just depends on your taste. And there's definitely some, you got Harbinger essentially as X-Men, right? And it was funny to me because not so much now, but even with the relaunch, essentially everybody was a Psyot. Almost everybody was a Psyot, right? Archer from Archer and Armstrong was a Psyot. That's how he had his abilities that he did. I don't remember if in the relaunch Bloodshot they mentioned that, but I know in the old version of Valiant they mentioned that Bloodshot was a Psyot. That's why he was able to take Rising Spirits nanites as opposed to other people. So basically, they were that's how they've done it, and so then they connected the universe that way. But marketing wise, Dinesh and Shooter and the gang, with these coupons that you had to cut out, and so these are a little harder to find. This is the pink version that you got if you cut the coupons out and mailed it away, and of course this one's signed by Jim Shooter there. But this is the more recent one, but that's Perillo. So
oh yeah,
and so you got so much there, and think about Valiant Vision, 3D comic books. It was ahead of its time. And for those of you who don't know, behind Dayymares, most of those on his wall back there are Valiant characters. Now, is it the same guy that draws all those? I know you posted some on G.
So above me, on the top row all the colored ones of the 9x12s were done by the same guy. Then that one right up there that's black and white except for the red spot, that was Elliot Fernandez. Elliot Fernandez. I'm drawing a blank right now. I think. Anyway, so that was a different guy. The XO in color below that was another guy that I got off of on Instagram. And then there's 3 there. I can't move. Okay, there we go. Those 3 color ones, they were done by the same guy that did the Ghost Spider over there. And then the last 3, I am horrible with this. So that Eternal Warrior and Rai and Harada are all done by the same guy that also did the that 9x12 up there. I meant 11x17 up there.
So is that some guy local to you? A guy you met at
no?
Con,
that one guy is that does the black and white ones. That's Mark Pennington, who's actually drawn on some. I think XO is some of the books he did.
Okay. Well, do you collect any foreign editions of?
I have not gotten into that yet. That's another one of those things that I would
another rabbit hole.
Like to, but yeah.
So this came in today.
Nice.
4001 AD.
Yeah.
Clayton Crane cover. And so, as you can see, it's not in English.
Yes.
And so
I've looked at that one and thought about getting it, but I was like, no, just get, finish out your old stuff first.
So it comes with a coin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got the Rai right there with the Valiant logo, and then it says 4001 AD. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I was looking at, and just got some foreign editions ordered from, I think they're somewhere in Europe. They'll take forever to get here, but that have got the Valiant. It's got the XO cover with him and Turok on it that Bart Sears did. But it says Ninjak on there. So which a lot of those foreign editions do, and then they'll put more than one book in there. But if you like certain covers, and it's kind of neat to put them together with their English counterparts, like that. So yeah.
Here's one thing I actually got in the mail today that I was waiting on that I thought was kind of neat. They are.
Don't show me that. Don't show me that.
Did you not get in on it?
I didn't. I contacted him. I saw it, and I said, "Dude, do you still have these?" And he said, "No, I'm sold out."
Yeah, they came in today.
And I'm going, and I was going, and I told him, I said, "Look, I know some people. I'm going to give them as gifts. So I'm glad you actually showed them to me. That way, I would have sent it to you. You already had them, but I was going to send you a pair.
Yeah.
Those are so cool. Let me put you at solo so you can show everybody those.
Yeah, there was only 26 sets of them made, and so I was happy to get them.
All right, hold on. You pause in there. There you go. They're garbage pail homages.
Yeah,
with the
they aren't stickers, but
right. But they look just like the Garbage Pail Kids, except with the Valiant characters.
Yeah.
And so back in the day, I used to collect Garbage Pail Kids.
Me too.
And oh my goodness, yes.
And so this just brought it all home.
Oh yeah.
With all of it. And then the back forms the Bloodshot one. it forms the puzzle of that one.
Okay.
So, there's the little bitty pieces
wow.
that you can put together to make. So these will probably be going in a. Another thing I liked that I thought was kind of neat about it is he made 9, which seems like an odd number, but
you put
a
them on
lot
a
of your
page.
sheets, yes. So they're going to go on a page and probably go right down there. Fill that spot there. So
Yeah, he said no, I sold out of them, and but I'm gonna put you on the sheet for next time. I said okay. So, wow. So you're the reason I didn't get one. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. One of the reasons. There's 25 other people too that you can blame. Apparently, he said, I was seeing an article, I think it was today, he said he had to tell Dinesh no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which would be hard to do.
I'm in good company then. I'm in good company.
Yeah, you're in good company.
Well, and going back to talking about Dinesh, he still collects Valiant.
Oh yeah, he collects
so
all kinds of stuff, but
does
Valiant
that
too.
not speak to his fandom, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he gets forced out and he's still a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that speaks to his fandom into the medium, but and obviously a marketing genius because is a hero trade.
Oh yeah.
That's coming out.
Yeah, that came out. Yeah,
That Idea Comics. But man, that thing shot up. I mean, it was out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden he's built so much hype around his stuff that people are going to run out there and get it.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if he sold more comics than Valiant Comics that month that comes out.
And also, from the very beginning, several months ago, you could only order one issue from a comic book store. He was that was part of the agreement that the comic book store signed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 100, I think it's up to like 120 something comic book stores now, but you can only get one from the store.
Yeah.
Of each of their books. And he's assembled, Jeff Lemire, I'm pretty sure, and a bunch of other top tier names for it. I'm interested to see how it does. Because if nothing else, it'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like I said, he's figured out how to get the public's attention. You didn't say much about newer Valiant, and I can kind of concur. Ra's okay. Exo, the jury's still out on it because it's only on issue 2, right? But this Harbinger that they got coming out, they were talking about how he needs to check his white privilege at the door, and they need to do diversity and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, did these people ever read a comic book?
Yeah.
I mean, how diverse is Harbinger? I mean, going back to the volume 1 or volume 2, you had white, you had black on there, you had I'm trying to remember the lady's name from the I think she was an Indian, and then you had Faith, who was not the nice slender model as most
especially in the 90s.
I mean, how's that for diversity? I don't. I'm like, it's like these people just want to ruin characters.
Yeah. Well, and I had no problem with them coming up with like Livewire and a bunch of other diverse characters, as long as they're new and they fit in well.
Yeah.
I don't care what the color of someone's skin is, their gender identity or whatever, but I'm not overly fond of whenever they change it for no reason other than to change it.
Yeah. Well, and Livewire, wasn't she originally a redhead in the Secret Weapons? Wasn't that?
I think they're playing it off as that she was a different person.
Oh, okay. Well, but even if she wasn't, it wasn't like she was a big character back in the first era. So when they changed the color of her skin, it worked. I mean, it wasn't like bad, but just like you said, for the sake of trying to make some kind of statement. I mean, if you want a new readership, fine. I mean, that's good business sense, but don't abandon the one that's brought you to the dance before you get a new dance partner. So. Well, yeah, so we are about at an hour. I do appreciate the people that have been hanging out with us and the people that will watch this on the rewind. Do you want to shout out? I know you're typically playing D&D on Sundays. And so I actually popped in the chat, was watching y'all. I got Sunday. I got out of church early or something. Anyway, I was sitting there watching y'all, but so do you want anything you're doing on YouTube or Instagram that you want to shout out before we get on here?
About it that, is regular, is that Sunday night on White Whale's channel, playing D&D at 8:30. What time is it? I think it's just right a little bit after 8 Central.
Is that usually on White Whale's channel?
Yep, it's always on there. I think we're taking a break this next week, but be back 2 days after Christmas for a special Christmas themed one. Oh, I just happened to think about this. Let me grab something to show you that I don't know if you have ever saw. They're up on my shelf. So you may have saw like these. They made mini Valiant mini mates.
Right.
Okay, so I got the 3 of those. They made 3 sets of those. And they also made this one guy made these vinyl figures.
Yeah. Can you even order those anymore off Valiant's website?
Not off of Valiant's website, but off of the guy that made them's website.
Okay.
You can still get a month or 2 ago. You could still get them. And he also had a Bloodshot one.
Cool.
And there's a Faith Pop too that I've got, but it's a little bit higher up, and I didn't want to.
So the Faith Pop, that was supposed to be the first of them.
Like 4.
Yeah. And it became the only one.
Yep.
Yeah, got to get that stuff together, Valiant. Come on now.
Yeah. And it was already released in China.
So we didn't talk about.
Yeah, I've got one of those up there too.
So what do you think about the bald head versus the hair?
I like it with the hair, but I don't know how he would have looked with hair.
Yeah, it'd been CGI. So
yeah.
So, could have been like Superman's mustache or something, crazy.
Yeah. So
my beef was that he wasn't white, like typically, like he usually is, and it might be because you have to CGI all that out, and then when these big name actors are like, no, we're not going to do that. You go, okay, whatever you want.
Well, they kind of did it at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And so that made me think that there might be, that the sequel might be him in white, and that might be sort of their way of leading into it,
Right. Well, yeah, and
sort of rewriting it a little bit.
And the newer iterations of Bloodshot in the comics, he can kind of do that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like the old days where he stuck out like a sore thumb.
So I wasn't overly happy with the movie, but I wasn't like, mad at it either. Yeah. It's basically what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
My son loved it.
Okay.
But he had no clue about the story and everything. He just thought it was a great action movie. So, whenever you look at it through those lenses, I can see where, just as a popcorn flick, but it was a good movie, but
Yeah. Well, when you think about Marvel, though, they've set the
Yeah.
bar so high.
Yes.
And so think about DC. DC makes what, $1 million off of Aquaman, and they're like, yeah, I don't think it's really successful. What? You don't think it was successful? I mean, you've done set the bar so high, and then so the anticipation is it's got to fit in all the little markers that Marvel does, and it doesn't have to be right, right? You know, so just do your own thing. The only other thing talking about Bloodshot would be Harbinger. Now they sold the movie rights off to a different movie studio, so that's going to make a whole Sony Marvel dynamic if they ever hope to bring back the connected universe. But at this point, I don't think they're too worried about it. They're just worried about selling a movie and whatever. So. But again, I do appreciate everybody for watching. And Dayymares, I appreciate you agreeing to come on to the show.
Thanks
and
for having me. It was a blast.
You heard where he's at. And pardon the technical difficulties, internet lag, is for real. And StreamYard has been acting up horribly. We were doing an auction Saturday, and people were typing stuff in the chat, and then they were IGing me messages like, did you even see where I claimed that? And I said, no, it's not even in the chat. It was crazy. So a lot of people still using it, and StreamYard and YouTube are lagging because of it. But thanks again. Go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. Dayymares information is in the description below if you want to sub him up and get connected with him over on IG, where he says he does most of his stuff. My information is below as well. And then also how you can enter to win an X-Men 4 first appearance of Scarlet Witch for my 750 subscriber giveaway. The details are in that video. Again, the link is below. But until